Hi everybody and welcome to the class. So this is directly on Zoom, but also I am recording the class and I will post it to Facebook and also to YouTube after the class. So the structure will be very similar compared to the other days, and I'm using Zoom because of the bad connection on Facebook Live last week. So we begin with an introduction document and hopefully we have no problem with connection. Hopefully there's no problem with the connection with the Wi-Fi and with Zoom. And you can see my screen here. So on the left, this is the plan for today. To begin, we have an introduction document, and that's to introduce the grammar first. So the plan is to introduce the grammar first. So I'm just going to try and identify my camera with my Zoom. So this is the agenda. I don't know if you can see me. I think maybe not. So I just want to make sure that you can see me. Okay, so hopefully there will be no problem with the connection. Okay, so this is the introduction for the grammar. On the left, this is the most important document. After the introduction, we will continue with a list of phrasal verbs and a list of idioms. And also we have an article from the BBC to analyze some vocabulary and to analyze some expressions. But first, this is the schedule for the week. So every morning at 9 o'clock, we have the speaking class. And this morning we had two classes, one at 8 o'clock and another at 9 o'clock. And it's a possibility for people to participate, to join, to practice speaking for different topics, and also some correction as well. Now at 11:15, we have the free English class or the English lesson. It's just recorded, as I said, and I put on Facebook and YouTube later. And today we have another webinar at 4 o'clock in relation to business English. So today's topic at 4 o'clock is business English. Saturday, tomorrow, we have the B2 exam, and every day we have different webinars. So that's the plan. So on the left, this document is the most important document in my opinion. It is the key for learning English, and I'll explain the important parts. Some people are very familiar with this document because you have seen it before, but some people are new to the class and might be watching for the first time. So I want to explain the different parts. For me, there are three different sections. The first section is use of English. The second section are the different tenses that we use, you can see in yellow. And the third section is just other grammar topics we can see here, okay? So that's the plan, and I can just see a chat here. No problem. Okay, no, I just have a message directly. So that's the plan. We have grammar, we have tenses, and we have use of English. For me, this section is maybe the most important because we have different accents around the world. So people in Ireland speak very different compared to people in England, Australia, United Kingdom, United States. So the different accents are a big part of English. Also dialects are very difficult as well. So that's very, very important. Phrasal verbs for me are probably the most important aspect when you learn English because they are very unique to English. They're very particular. And we have a verb plus a preposition, and this will create a phrasal verb with a completely different significance. And that's the plan for use of English. Also, we have idioms, and we use idioms all the time in relation to family, social situations, professional situations, and they are expressions and they are a big part of English as well. So for me, this section is the most important, and during the class, I mention frequently these words. So it's important at the beginning just to explain the terms, just to explain the technical vocabulary first, because the plan is during the class, I will mention the vocabulary frequently. Conversation. So you need to practice conversation when you learn English. It's important that you continue to practice regularly, and hopefully somebody can correct your pronunciation and your conversation. That's very, very important. In English, pronunciation is a big part, and during the class I try to identify and try to help with the difficult words in English for pronunciation, because there's a lot of irregular words in English for pronunciation. Okay, the second section are tenses, and when you speak English you need to be very familiar with the different tenses in English. So I want to explain briefly the most important tenses. For example, we have the simple, which is the present simple, the past simple, and the future simple. But we have a big problem because the past simple, we have a lot of irregular verbs. And this is very, very difficult in English and very problematic. So you need to probably remember all the irregular verbs in the past simple. And this is really tricky and really difficult. Also, we have the continuous, the present continuous, the past continuous, and the future continuous. For example, I am eating, I was eating, I will be eating. Okay, so they're the most important expressions. That is the continuous, and then that's the simple, the continuous, and the next idea is the perfect. So we have the present perfect and the past perfect, also the future perfect, but the difference between the present perfect and the past perfect is very small. Basically, we use the present perfect when the action is finished, it's completed, but the consequences are relevant and related to the present. For example, I have eaten my breakfast, it's finished, it's completed, but it is related to the present because at the moment I am not hungry. So that's the present perfect. The past perfect is a similar structure, except the verb have is the past. I had eaten, and this is usually used before another action in the past simple. So I had eaten my breakfast before my friend contacted me. That's the big difference between the present perfect and the past perfect. And after the perfect, we have the idea of the infinitive. So the infinitive is the base of the verb, and typically we have the preposition to. You can see here, to hear, to eat, to drink, to go. So the infinitive is very, very important, and that is a key part to English. Conditionals are very tricky. They are very, very difficult in the book. In the theory, is very complicated. The theory is very heavy for the conditionals in the book. We have the 0, first, second, third, mixed conditional, and it's a bit heavy, but in reality, it's a little more flexible, it's a little less strict, and it's related to the word if. If it rains today, I will not go to the city centre. If I meet my friend tomorrow, I will contact him about the technology, for example. So conditionals are a big part of English. Finally, the active and the passive is another very important area in relation to the tenses. So the concept of the active is the subject, the verb, and the object. I drink the water. And to create the passive, which is very advanced and very fluent, we change the position. So the water is drunk by me. So that's a bit difficult, and that is a very advanced structure. So just to explain to the people in Zoom, I think we have 4 or 5 people attending in Zoom. So thank you for connecting. But again, this class is recorded, and the intention of this class is to record and to put on Facebook and YouTube later. Okay, so just to explain to everybody. Finally, the grammar section is important, and here you can see a noun. So we have a lot of nouns in English. We have television, football, bottle. We have a lot of nouns. Every noun, you need an article. And in English, we have 2 articles. We have a and we have the. For example, house, a house in general, but specifically the house. And that's very important. There is one rule: when the noun begins with a vowel, a, e, I, o, u, we need the article an. Okay, so that's just something important to remember. Also, the concept of countable and uncountable is very important for the nouns. Is it possible to count the noun, or is it impossible? For example, water, chocolate, air, money, it's not really possible to count. So these are uncountable. And this is important in relation to how much and how many. Okay, so how much is uncountable, how much chocolate, how much water, how much energy, and how many is related to countable, how many bottles, how many pens. So that's a very, very important distinction. And some of you are probably familiar with this, but it's just a good opportunity to refresh. The adjective is the function of the adjective is to describe the noun. So house, big house, that's the function. And the position of the adjective is very important in English. The position is before the noun. Okay, so that's really, really key, because other languages, the position is different. So in English, the adjective is before the noun and the function is to describe. In relation to the adjectives, we have a concept of the comparative and the superlative. So when you compare two things, for example, this man is small, but the other man is smaller than this man, but this man is the smallest. So that's the comparative and the superlative. Usually it's depending on the syllable. If it's one syllable, we add ER. And if it's more than one syllable, interesting, we say more interesting, most interesting. So that area is important. The adverb, the function of the adverb is to describe the verb. So the position of the adverb is after the verb. For example, drink quickly, talk slowly. So the adverb is very important to describe the verb. Modal verbs. So we have a lot of verbs that are very particular in English called modal verbs. You can see can, could, may, might, shall, should, ought to, and must. And they are very, very important in relation to English. They're very particular. For example, can is ability and permission. Could, may, and might are for possibilities and for options. Shall is very formal for a question. Shall we watch the football? Shall we contact your friend? It's formal and the significance is will. Should and ought to are typical for situations for advice. I should go to my friend. I should watch the movie. It's a recommendation and for advice. Ought to is a bit more formal, a bit more advanced, and the pronunciation is important because the G is silent, but it has the same significance. We ought to contact your friend. We ought to watch the movie. So it's a recommendation and advice. Must is obligation. You have no choice. It's something that you need to do, that you have to. So must and have to are practically the same. Maybe must is more formal and must is more polite, but it's very, very important and it's an obligation. And they are the most important modal verbs. They are very, very important. Prepositions are a big part of English, and we have maybe 150 prepositions, and they are very small words. We use prepositions in relation to movement, in relation to direction, and in relation to position. For example, speak. I speak in general, but direction, I speak to my friend. Look in general, I look, but I look at the television. So for specific direction, we use prepositions. Movement, I run across the road. So for movement, it's very important. And also for position. For example, the bottle is in my hand, over my hand, under my hand, behind, in front of. We have a lot of prepositions and they are very important, especially in the section of phrasal verbs. So we use prepositions to combine with the verb, and that's a big part of English as well. Finally, we have a few more. So this is just a little introduction. And here we need to be clear with the difference between the possessive adjective, the possessive pronoun, and the object pronoun. So I'm going to make this smaller so you can see. And here, these three sections are very, very important. Basically, the difference between my hat, your hat, his hat, masculine, her hat, feminine, or the hat is mine, the hat is yours, the hat is his, the hat is hers, feminine. That's the second column. And the third line is the pronoun. So give the hat to me, give the hat to you, give the hat to him, give the hat to her. So this area is very typically confused for a lot of people. And this is the reason it's very, very important. Also, the difference between this, that, these, and those is key. And also the difference between another, other, the other, and the others. Okay. So finally, creating the question is a big part of English. How do you create the question? That's very, very important. And it's a big area. Also, the suffixes and the prefixes is very important. We have a list of suffixes, the little ending of the word that will give you the indication of the form of the verb. And that's really, really key. A big area to focus on. And when you are learning English, it's a good idea to focus particularly on suffixes and prefixes. Linkers. In English, we have a lot of linkers and conjunctions. We have some very simple linkers, but yes, we have some more advanced and more formal linkers, but they're necessary that you are appropriate and you use them correctly. So that's the section for linkers or conjunctions. Specific vocabulary. A lot of people want to improve vocabulary. So the best way to improve vocabulary is to read. You need to read books, read magazines, read newspapers, read lots of different sources. And that's definitely the best way to increase your vocabulary. Similarly with writing, you need to practice your writing. So there are 5 areas to improve English. Speaking is one, writing is another, reading is another, listening is completely different, and then maybe grammar. So there are approximately 5 different areas when you are learning English, and writing is just one particular area. Exams. So exams are very popular and very important in English. The Cambridge exams are a big part of English, and also the IELTS exams are very popular. And every week I have specific classes, specific webinars dedicated to exams. For example, today at 4 o'clock, it's business English. And on Wednesday, it's IELTS. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, it's the B2. So we have different classes every day, and exams are very, very important. Okay, so that's the introduction. Thank you for watching. Now I will begin an article. So in this article, I want to show you vocabulary, and I want to show you expressions and some grammar in relation to this text. Okay, so I will read the text first for pronunciation, and also I will explain. So I'll read first, and then I return to answer some grammar and some vocabulary. If you have a question, if you are watching in Zoom and you want to ask a question, perfect. You can comment in the chat if you want to ask a question. If you want to participate, you are welcome to participate. So just make a comment in the Zoom and I can connect to you. And that's if you want to ask a question or if you want to participate, okay? So first I begin. The Chinese noodle dish whose name doesn't exist. So a very strange topic and a bit difficult. So I continue. China's biang biang noodles are taking the world by storm, yet the dish's name doesn't officially exist. Okay, so I'll continue just for pronunciation. A rhythmic thumping sound echoed through the restaurant-lined street in northwest China, emanating from multiple directions, their cadences briefly falling into sync before disbanding once again. Okay, I reflectively turned my head in the direction of the nearest thud, very, very difficult, to see a chef working in front of his shop, swinging a hefty rope of dough between his hands. So the vocabulary already is very, very advanced, very good level of English, very fluent, very, very creative and very advanced. So the level in this article is very good, really entertaining, really colorful, and it's a bit difficult, but it's very, very fluent vocabulary, okay? The next paragraph, he raised the strand and firmly, deftly slapped it repeatedly against the countertop, each dexterous motion coinciding with a resounding thwack. So this is very, very advanced. As he continued slamming it, the dough stretched elongated to the length of his wingspan, pinching the center of the strand. Okay, he then split the dough down the middle to form a loop before tossing it nimbly into a waiting pot of bubbling water. So very, very good vocabulary. And here you can see the picture. But now I just want to explain the vocabulary, okay? So first, a dish. So in English, there's a real difference really between a dish and a plate. And I know in Spanish, you normally say plato, and maybe Italiano, maybe it's plato. But in English, maybe when you go to the restaurant, the most typical expression is the first course, second course, third course. So maybe the dessert, like chocolate, is the third course. But in Spain, it's primero plato, segundo plato. But in the restaurant, in English, it's the first course, second course, third course. Okay, that's the first point. So basically a dish and a plate. In English, maybe a dish is more typical in the restaurant. My favorite dish, my favorite meal is lasagna. But in Spain, they maybe say plato. So it's just a curious difference in English between the two, dish and plate. Here, we have a very, very typical expression, very difficult. Okay, so to take the world by storm is a very good expression, very advanced. And let me explain, I suppose, the significance. Maybe a celebrity, maybe, for example, a football player at the beginning, at the start, is very unknown. Nobody knows the player at the beginning, but the player continues and is very successful, is fantastic, and he takes the world by storm. So the significance is to have a very big impact, okay? To have a very big or successful impact. A really, really good expression, very advanced, very fluent. And we use it, I suppose, in the situation of celebrity or the situation of success. So here, the noodles are very, very new and they are having a big, big impact. They're very successful, very, very popular, okay? Yet, normally, yet is used at the end of the sentence, and the negative, I don't have, for example, maybe the past, I didn't have my breakfast yet. So that's typically in the negative at the end of the sentence. You need to be familiar also with still. So we say, I still haven't had my breakfast, okay? But when yet is possible at the beginning of the sentence and is possible in the middle of the sentence. And here it's in the middle and the significance is completely different. And in Spanish, it's sin embargo. In English, we maybe say however. So yet is possible in the middle of the sentence or the beginning of the sentence with the significance however. For example, Ireland is a beautiful country, yet the weather is very bad. That's just one example. The significance is however. Okay, so really interesting expression and a bit difficult in English. And here, this word whose is a bit difficult, and that's called a relative pronoun. In Espanol, it's cuyos, so it's related to possession. Typical in the school, for example, the teacher maybe said the bottle, whose bottle is this? And that means the possession. So who is the owner of the bottle? Whose bottle is this? And that means who is the owner of the bottle, okay? So a bit interesting and a bit difficult. That's called a relative pronoun, which, that, who, these are relative pronouns. So very, very technical explanation and very, very grammatical, but it's important that you are aware of this. Okay, so let's begin here. The rhythm is a difficult vocabulary. So rhythm is the noun and rhythmic is the adjective. So you need to be clear with the difference between the noun and the adjective. So a rhythm is the noun. And as I said, rhythmic is the adjective. Very, very advanced, very difficult, not so typical, but there is a difference between the rhythm and rhythmic. And here it's the adjective. And remember, we have the article, and every article we need the noun. Okay, so the noun in this situation is the sound. Adjective is rhythmic. We have two adjectives, and this word thumping is very important because the verb is to thump, and it's similar to hit. Okay, it's maybe more advanced, it's more colorful. Maybe it's the same as to hit. For example, if I thump the table, I hit the table very, very hard. Maybe in a fight, in a situation with children, when the two children are fighting, one child thumps the other child, and the significance is to hit. So one child hit the other child. So it's very, very strong. And here it's used as an adjective in relation to the sound. So the significance is a very, very loud sound. Okay, so a thumping noise is very good adjective in relation to the sound, a loud sound. Okay, so a thumping noise has the significance of a loud sound. Very good vocabulary and very, very important. Also, with a headache, if you have a headache, it's very typical to say a thumping headache, and the significance is a very, very strong headache. And remember, the pronunciation of the CH in English is difficult because sometimes it's like a K and other times it's like just CH. For example, church, CH, but headache, it's like a K. And here it's the pronunciation of a K. A headache is like really, really a lot of pain, very intense, very, very strong. So that's very typical in this situation. Also in sport, when one team defeats another team with a big victory, you can say Juventus thumped Real Madrid, and the significance is Juventus win convincingly. Okay, so I'll give you this example. Juventus thumped Real Madrid, and the significance is como vencer in Espanol, to beat. Okay, so Juventus basically beat Real Madrid. It's just very, very good vocabulary and very important. Here we have a verb to echo. So this is very interesting, and I think in other languages it's the same. The noun is an echo. So you can hear an echo. but there is a verb to echo, and it's possible in conversation. If you agree with your friend, I echo his opinion, I echo her opinion, and the significance is maybe you agree or you repeat the same opinion as the other person. So maybe you can say, I echo her opinion, and the significance is you agree or you concur, but really you agree with the other person. Okay, so very, very good advanced vocabulary. Through is the preposition, very, very flexible. A través in Espanol, so you walk through the street, walk through the people. Here we have the article, and remember there are two articles in English, a and the, so probably we need the noun. So the noun here is the street, and remember before the noun we have the adjective. So article, adjective, noun, and here we have restaurant lined. So it's a very, very interesting word. And this hyphen, this little line is called a hyphen. And when you connect two adjectives or two words together with the hyphen, you create one word. So the restaurant lined now is one word. And the significance is there are restaurants al lado, beside. For example, the street is restaurant lined. And that means there are lots of restaurants on either side of the street. Very, very fluent vocabulary. And here it's the same. The significance is the street has a lot of restaurants on the side. Okay, emanating, I think that's similar in Spanish and Latin. Very, very advanced in English. Emanating from is difficult vocabulary. And I don't know in Zoom if you can see me. I hope people can see me, because I'm having some problems with the video this week in relation to sharing. So I hope you can see me. Again, briefly means very, very short. So for example, I will contact you briefly means I will contact you very, very soon. Okay. And you can say a brief meeting means a very short meeting. I think in Espanol, brevemente, but there is a possibility to brief, which is typical for the president. So the secretary briefs the president, and the significance is the secretary gives the most important information in a small period to the president. Okay, so to brief a person is to give the most important information to somebody. Okay, and that is the most typical situation. As I said, a brief meeting, and briefly is the adverb, because normally the adverb ends in ly. Okay, falling into sync is very creative, because the verb is to synchronize, and I think that's similar in other language, the verb to synchronize, but it is possible to make short to sync. Okay, and we normally say the preposition in sync. So for example, you and your friend are in sync. You have the same idea, you have the same opinion, you have the same attitude, so you are in sync. And it's just more creative to fall into sync, which is maybe the same, and that means that you agree with the same topic at the same time. The verb to disband is very difficult, and it's like to separate. Okay, so to disband is possible. It's a little advanced, and it means to separate. And here it means they are separating. Basically, once again is the same as again. Okay, so there's no real difference. Turned my head, no problem. Here we have the adverb again. So the adverb reflexively describes the verb. So it's just an adverb again. So the function of the adverb is to describe the verb. No problem. Nearest. So remember the adjective, the comparative, and the superlative. So I live near the city. The nearest restaurant is here, but this restaurant is near. The other restaurant is nearer, but this is the nearest. Okay, and it's like the closest. Nearest and the closest are practically the same. Thud is very, very difficult vocabulary, and the significance is an impact or a bang. Okay, so if you hear a thud, it's very typical to say an impact or a bang, and that's the expression a thud. Let me just write the example. I heard a thud, and it's a big impact or a big noise. Okay, so that's possible as well to hear a thud. Chef. So basically the chef is the person who prepares the food, but a lot of people confuse a chef and a cook, and they are no problem, but the problem is a cooker. So this is the mistake. This is the error. A cooker is maybe the machine, like an oven, okay? And a chef or a cook is the person who prepares the food. That's the big difference between a cooker and a chef and a cook. So lots of people make the error because normally the suffix er is for the person. For example, painter, we have a lot of words that end in er for the person, and this is the confusion. So just be a little careful with this. Swinging is very, very important vocabulary as well, to swing. And it's this action, to swing, typical for the children in the playground. They have the swing, okay? So the noun is the swing. It's typical for the children because you have the slide and you have the swing, okay? But the verb to swing is this action. And it could be related to boxing as well. To swing is with the hands. And we have an expression, if the room is very, very small, if you have no space in the room, we say you cannot swing a cat in here. And the significance is the room is very, very small because it's not possible to move the cat. Okay, so really, really interesting vocabulary and very typical expression. And I suppose that's the most typical context with the verb to swing. Hefty is an adjective, very advanced adjective. Here we have the noun and the article. So a hefty rope is the article, adjective, noun. So rope is, I think, similar in the ship. You have the rope. So there is, I'm trying to find the translation in other languages. So let me show you here the translation for a rope. And you can see in Arabic, Bulgarian, Chinese, Croatian, Czech, Dutch, French, corde in French, which I think is very similar in Spanish and other languages. Italiano, a corda, Spanish, Portuguese, corda, okay, cuerda. So that's the significance of a rope. And hefty means very, very heavy. It's almost similar as very heavy. Heavy is more general. Most people understand heavy, but hefty is more intense. It's heavier, okay? So maybe it's an insult for a person. A hefty person is maybe an insult, like very, very physically heavy. You can say your workload, hefty workload, and the significance is you have a lot of work. You have a lot of work that you need to do, and that's very important here. Dough is very specific vocabulary for the pizza. The food, the ingredient we use to make the pizza is the dough. Okay, so very specific vocabulary for the food, but also in conversation, in informal situations, we say dough for money. Okay, so you need to make dough, and it's very informal. The significance, you need to make money. Okay, so it could be informally, and it could be money. Very, very famous, very typical, and very, very good vocabulary as well. Okay, so it's very, very difficult, this text, very advanced, but maybe we just do this paragraph and maybe a few more sentences just to see the difficult expressions and to see the structures, and very, very interesting. Okay, so here we have the verb to raise, and you need to be clear the difference between the verb to rise and to raise. They look very, very similar. They are very, very similar, but there's a big difference between the two. For example, the first verb to rise is typical for the sun. The sun rises at 6 o'clock. The price rises after 10 o'clock. The temperature rises. So typically the verb to rise is when the subject is the sun, the price, the temperature, and raise is typically the subject, the person. I raise my hand. I raise an objection. I raise a question. So the subject is me or a person, and that's the difference between rise and raise. Also, it's possible to raise a child, and the significance is to educate the child, to help the child grow. So that's very, very famous, to raise a child, to raise a question, to raise an objection. Really, really typical structures and typical vocabulary. And as I said, rise is typical, maybe the sun, the price, the temperature. Very, very typical situations for to rise. Okay, so really interesting. And here it's the man, he, past simple, raised, because remember, to create the past simple, it's regular, we add ed, but of course we have a lot of irregular verbs in the past, but here it's regular. So he raised the strand, which is difficult vocabulary, and it's related to the material. So if you have a jacket, a strand of the jacket is one piece of the jacket. So it's very specific vocabulary. A strand, firmly, is very, very important. Here we have two really good and really, really fluent words. Okay, so firm is the adjective. First, you can see ly is adverb and adverb. Okay, but first the word is firm, and it's a very important word. Firm means almost strong. Okay, so a very firm handshake. In English, we say handshake, which is dar el mano. Okay, and we say hand shake, but we say a firm handshake, and that means a very strong handshake. You can have a firm person, and maybe it means very, very hard, very strong person. And also in the context for the parent and the child, the parents are very firm with the children, and the significance is maybe very strict, very strong, very disciplined. So it could be negative, and that's a perfect example. The parents are very firm with the children. Also, we have a law firm, which is like a law company. Okay, so it is very, very flexible. So really typical, a law company is a law firm. And also to firm up your plans means maybe to concrete or to confirm or to clarify your plan. So it is very typical. And here it's the adverb. So it's related to the verb raised. So it means he lifted very strongly the strand. Deftly is very, very advanced vocabulary and very typical. There is one expression, we say a deft touch, which is a very skilled or very talented touch. If you have a deft touch, it's like a very, very nice, very beautiful touch. For example, at the wedding, if you receive a lot of presents, you receive a lot of gifts in the wedding, and somebody gives you a special gift, a little detail, it's a deft touch. It's like a little small, delicate touch and a delicate detail. So here, again, it's the adverb, and the adverb describes the verb raised. And again, it would be maybe delicately, but very, very nice. Okay, so deftly. Slap is very good as well. And it is, I suppose, typical in an argument. And maybe the children, one child slaps, it's this action to slap the face. So that's the original significance, to slap the face, but it's more flexible because, for example, aftershave or perfume for the lady or aftershave for the man, I slap the aftershave on my face. Also a metaphor, a slap in the face, not necessarily physical, it's more metaphorical. So if you apply for the job and the job say no, the job choose another person, it's a metaphor that it's a slap in the face for you. So it's like an insult or a rejection. So it could be a metaphor for an insult or a rejection. Okay, so really, really interesting. Also a type of humor, we say slapstick humor, which is a very, very typical type of humor. And it's maybe very stupid humor, a very silly humor, a very basic humor. You know, the jokes that are very simple, the jokes that are very silly, that is slapstick humor. Okay, like ridiculous situations, but it is typical. Also informal, to slap another 10 euro in the restaurant. Okay, so you maybe say, slap another 10 euro on the bill. So this is informal, and the significance is to add. Okay, so you add another 10 euro on the bill. The significance is to slap on another 10 euro, maybe informal. Also for makeup, it's possible for maybe obviously the men or the women if you have makeup. And if you put on makeup, that's the expression, to put on makeup. But if it's more dramatic, you can slap on the makeup, and it's possible in informal situations. Okay, so as I said, the typical structure is to put on makeup, and that's very, very important. So they are the most typical structures with the verb to slap. And here he slapped it, which is probably the rope or the strand. So this is a substitution. Repeatedly. So again, this is the adverb, and it's probably related to this verb slapped, and it means again and again and again. So it's the adverb against the countertop, specific vocabulary. So for example, in the kitchen, the countertop is the place that you prepare the food. That's the countertop. So not too difficult. So I suppose in the bank, in the restaurant, you have the counter, which is the place that you pay the money. So this is the counter, and the countertop is the same. Just the pronunciation here is very important because the verb is to coincide, and the pronunciation is very important. I know in Spanish it's a similar word, and maybe Latin languages it's very similar, but in English the pronunciation is very important. Coincide. And I think you understand the significance, but I'll give you one example. My holiday is to Holland. I go to Holland on my holiday, and my holiday coincides with my friend's trip. So it's at the same time. But again, the significance is, or the important part is the pronunciation. Okay. And then maybe the substantivo is a coincidence. So very, very important vocabulary, very typical, very common, but the pronunciation is really key. And this is very, very difficult vocabulary as well. A resounding twack, twack, twack. So if you remember here, this word thumping, which is a very, very strong noise. Okay, that was really important. So probably it's a synonym for a thud, very advanced. A thud, a thump, and also a thwack are the same significance. Very, very advanced, very fluent, very, very typical, very fluent English. So a thwack is a loud noise, but very difficult vocabulary, probably proficient, okay, is very loud noise. And as I said, probably very advanced and very formal, okay? Again, slamming is to hit. So as he continued slamming it, the dough is related to the pizza, the ingredients. Stretch is really, really good verb, the verb to stretch. So for example, yoga, when you do yoga, you need to stretch your body, stretch your arms, stretch your legs. So it's very, very important. It's also flexible. In the noun, a stretch of road is like one part of the road is a stretch of road. So it's very typical in this situation. In relation to the light, for example, in Ireland, it's very bright in the evening until 9 o'clock. It's very bright. So in this situation, we say there is a long stretch in the evening, and that's the significance. The evening continues for a long time, and it is very typical expression, a long stretch in the evening. That's possible. And maybe to stretch your holiday out could be to extend. So it's very, very flexible. To stretch your holiday out means you extend your holiday, okay? So it's very flexible. And here, stretched and elongated are very, very similar. Wingspan is very difficult vocabulary because the wing is the ala, okay? So on the airplane, you have the wing. For the bird, you have the wing, and the wingspan is the capacity or the limit for the distance of the wing, okay? So it's very specific vocabulary. For example, the airplane has a wingspan of maybe 20 meters, and that means the como amplio, similar in Spanish, we say wide is the adjective, and the width. So wide is like amplio, it's the adjective, and the width is the noun, okay? So the wingspan is very, very specific vocabulary for this situation. So very good vocabulary. And finally, there is a verb to pinch, pinching the center. And maybe this is the same in English, typical for children. If one child pinches the other child, it's maybe a lot of pain. So the verb is to pinch, but maybe it's informal to rob. Okay, so it is possible informal in conversation. For example, the boy pinched the bag, and the significance is to rob or to steal. Okay, so it is possible to rob or to steal, and that is probably informal, but it is very, very common. Also, we say a pinch of salt, which is a very small quantity of salt. And there is an expression, a very difficult expression, idiom, very difficult idiom. We say to take it with a pinch of salt. And that means do not believe the comment. So my friend tells me the news, but I take the news with a pinch of salt. The significance is I do not listen very seriously because I do not believe the news. So if I take the news with a pinch of salt, the significance is I do not believe completely the comment. Very, very famous expression, probably difficult for you to understand, maybe, but it's very, very typical in English, okay? And as I said, they're the most typical expressions with pinch. Split, so he is the subject, then is like the next action. So first I went to the shop, then I went to the restaurant. So it's the next action. And split is the verb. It's like to separate. And maybe in relationships, you can split up, and that means to separate in a relationship, okay? Also in the restaurant, you can split the bill, and the significance is you divide the bill or you separate the bill equally, okay? So to split the bill is very typical as well in the restaurant, to divide the bill. And also we say to do the splits. And this is typical in gymnastics. It's a very difficult exercise with the legs, and you try to put the two legs flat. That's to do the splits. So it's a very typical exercise in gymnastics. And that's the most typical context, I think, with the verb to split, and down the middle to form a loop. Okay, so very, very interesting vocabulary. A loop is typical maybe with the aeroplane. You know, the aeroplane does this action, and like a very dramatic airplane, it flies like this. So this is a loop. Maybe for the earrings, you have loops, okay? Also in the law, we have a loophole in the law, or a loop in the law, okay? So that means that there's a little rule you can exploit the law because there's a little problem in the law. There's a loop in the law. It's a very, very specific expression. I hope you understand the significance. And it means there's a little area in the law, a little part of the rule that you can exploit. And probably it's not correct, probably it's not good, but you can exploit the law, okay? Also on YouTube, you can play the video on loop, or you can play the music on loop, and that means repeated. Okay, so very, very flexible, and you can see the importance and the flexibility of English. We have a lot of words we use in lots of different situations, and that's typical. Here we have a verb toss, and normally after the preposition before, so let me explain, preposition before, after, despite, without, the next verb is typically ing. So that's a typical rule. So for example, before meeting, before going, after meeting, after going, despite meeting, despite going, and it's the same with without. And here it's the ing, gerundio, or the gerund in English. But the verb is to toss, and it's very, very specific. It's like to throw. Okay, so for example, in school, the child has the pencil and they toss the pencil. The significance is to throw. Also with a coin, with money, you have €1 and you toss the coin. It's like to flick. Okay, so it's very similar to flick. And with the salad, you toss a salad. So you go to the restaurant and they prepare the salad. So to toss the salad is to move the salad. So very, very flexible. And here it's a synonym like to throw, como tirar in Espanol. Nimbly is very, very advanced vocabulary as well. It's an adjective. A nimble person is very flexible. Okay, so if the person's very nimble, they're very flexible. And here you can see the ly, and the significance of ly is the adverb. Okay, so nimbly is related to the verb toss, and it means maybe very flexibly. Okay, pot, very important for the kitchen because we have a pot and a pan. So very important difference, because the pan is to fry the egg. You fry the egg in the pan. The pancake is the pan, but the pot is maybe for the soup. Okay, so you have a pot for the soup and a pan for the pancake or the egg. Very important. And here we have an adjective, bubbling water, and substantivo is a bubble. The verb is to bubble, and it's the adjective bubbling water, so it's very specific. And also the opposite is to burst your bubble. So very, very interesting expression and very difficult. Well done, very difficult vocabulary, very good analysis. This is just a typical article from the newspaper, typical article from the magazine. I think this exercise is very important for people learning English. I think it's very interesting. Here you can see the vocabulary, you can see the expressions, and after the class I will put the vocabulary at the bottom of the video on Facebook, and very, very good vocabulary. So well done. Now I want to show you some expressions, but at this moment, if you want to participate, if you want to ask a question, if you want to practice some speaking, you are welcome to participate in the Zoom class. So just write a message, because everybody is mute at the moment. But if you want to participate with speaking, just contact me with a message and I can open your microphone and you can practice some speaking. Or if you have a question, if you have a doubt, maybe now is the perfect time to ask the question. So I am open, I am ready if you want to ask the question, because now I will continue with the idioms. So in the introduction, we had the phrasal verbs and the idioms in the use of English. I'll just show you, you remember. Here is the introduction. And at the top, we had idioms and phrasal verbs. So now I want to focus on idioms like expressions. And this is a list of typical idioms we use in English. They are very typical in conversation. They are very typical in formal situations, informal situations. They are very famous in movies, in series. We use idioms all the time. And the last expression we finished was the big time, or teacher's pet. And if you remember, the teacher's pet is maybe the most, I'll give you an example. The teacher's pet is an expression for the boy or the girl that wants to be the favorite of the teacher. So this is a teacher's pet who always is very polite, or very, who really has a desire to be the favorite of the teacher. So that's a teacher's pet. The big time is like, as I said, we say to hit the big time, and it means to be very, very famous. Okay, so if you hit the big time, or if you reach the big time, it means that you are very, very famous, and it's related to celebrities as well. So they were the last two expressions last week. Now we have another expression, the moment of truth, and that's very typical as well. So very understandable, I think. In an exam, this is the moment of truth. It's the big moment, it's the big test. So this is the moment of truth, and you will realize the truth, but be careful, because true is the adjective and the truth is the noun. Okay, so not too difficult. Also, we have an acid test, which is maybe the most important test. So for example, you start a new job and the first day is the acid test, because after the first day, you will realize if you like the job, or you will realize if you don't like the job. So that's a very famous expression. It's very flexible. So today is an acid test for a relationship. If you have started a relationship and you spend a lot of time together, but now you travel on holiday together. So this holiday is the acid test, because maybe after the holiday, you realize who the other person is, etc. So it could be the moment of truth or the acid test. So very typical in conversation. The next expression is important. The verb is to sail, and it's related to the boat or the ship. It's the specific verb we use to navigate. So the verb to sail, a person is a sailor, okay? But the expression in English is a metaphor. When the ship has sailed, the significance, the ship has departed, or the ship has left, or the aeroplane, so the ship has departed, the ship has left, or the ship has sailed are all synonyms, but this is a metaphor in relation to an opportunity. So maybe 10 years ago, you were very enthusiastic with painting. So 10 years ago, you were very enthusiastic with painting, but today, you do not continue to paint. So this opportunity for maybe a competition today, your opportunity it's gone, it's finished. So basically, your ship has sailed, or this ship has sailed, means the opportunity is finished. Okay, so it's very typical. Not a good explanation, but I hope you understand the significance. It means that the opportunity is gone, and the opportunity is finished. So you cannot take the opportunity because it's gone. Okay. The next one is typical as well. The time is ripe, and the word ripe is related to fruit. It's the type of fruit when it's ready and it's mature. We say ripe fruit, and I'll just show you the translation here in other languages because it's very important. Ripe. We have a lot of expressions, and here you can see other languages: Dutch, German, Hebrew, Hindi, maturo. Okay, so in Spanish it's maduro with Portuguese. So in English it's like mature. Okay, and if we say the time is ripe, the significance is now is the perfect moment to take the action. Now is the perfect moment to do something. So the time is now, or the time is ripe. So it's a very, very typical expression, and very good comment, and very good, very typically used in English. Okay, as I said, it's typical with ripe fruit. Maybe in Spanish you say frutas madura or frutas maduras, but in English it's ripe fruit, and the expression is the time is ripe, means now is the opportunity to do it. The next expression, to think on your feet, is typical, and it means to think very quickly, to think in the moment. You have no time to prepare, you have to think on your feet. Okay, so it means it's a metaphor that you have to think very quickly. For example, in a job interview, you go to the job interview and they ask you difficult questions. You have not prepared for the difficult question, and you have to think on your feet, think in the moment, and we can also say on the spot. Okay, so to think on the spot, to think in the moment, very, very good vocabulary, very typical, and very, very good conversation expressions. We use these all the time in movies, in series, a little difficult. Now, the next one is, tickled pink, and it's difficult because the verb is to tickle. Typical with children, when you tickle the child, it's this action under the arm to make the child laugh. So if you tickle the child will laugh. Okay, the verb to laugh. So this is the significance to tickle. We say you have the tickles, and that means that you, some people do not laugh when you do this action under the arm or you poke the person. So that's the expression. But to tickle somebody pink means excessive. So if you do this action continuously, the person changes the color of the face. The color of the face changes pink because it's very funny, a lot of laughing, no oxygen. But it's a metaphor we use in relation to a movie. If you watch the movie and you are laughing a lot, you are tickled pink. So the significance is you are laughing a lot and it's very, very funny. We can say in knots of laughter is very famous as well, because a knot is como nudo in Espanol, Italiano, maybe nudo. For example, your hair, you have knots in your hair, or in your shoes, you tie the laces and you have a knot in your shoe. Okay, so if your stomach is in knots, it's a lot of pain. So maybe the Chinese food, after the Chinese food, your stomach is in knots because it's a lot of pain, but it could be positive in relation to laughter. You have a lot of pain because you are laughing. Okay, so a knot of laughter, or stomach is in knots. Okay, so this is just a little example of idioms. This list is very important. You can see there are 7 pages of this document, but I like this analysis. I think it's very important. And every day I try to explain some of the vocabulary and some of the expressions. So today we had maybe 3 or 4 different expressions. And we continue every day with this list. That is the plan. And also we had the article from today from the BBC. Okay, so that's more or less the most important things for the class. That's everything. If you have a question, you can participate on the Zoom. So if you want to ask a question, feel free. You can comment. If anybody has a comment or a question, you can ask me. This is the social media material. So on Instagram, you can connect with this website, with this name on Instagram. Twitter is the same content more or less as the Facebook page. YouTube, I have the YouTube channel as well, and that's the most important information. Remember, everything is free. So this class is free, and I'm very happy to teach everybody at the moment for free because of the pandemic. The situation has changed for everybody. So we all have different situations. So I'm very happy at the moment to teach. It's a good opportunity for you. It's a good opportunity for everybody. And this is my plan today. So if you want to make a small donation, if you want to make a small tip, it's possible with 2 or 3 ways. The first possibility is the bank transfer with the details here. The second possibility is maybe the application Revolut. The third possibility is the application Bizum. And it's possible if you want to make a small donation to support me. Thank you to everybody who has helped me already. And I just see we have a question. Hello, Catherine, would you like to participate? Would you like to speak for a little bit? So remember, this page is for the donation if you want. So thank you again, everybody. And again, now is the opportunity if you want to practice some speaking. I'm going to press unmute for everybody, and hopefully you can see ask to unmute. And if people want to speak, you are very, very welcome to participate. Okay, so if not, no problem, we will end the class. But if you want to practice speaking, go ahead, now is the moment. Okay.
Hi.
So, hello, Catherine, how are you?
Good, very good, teacher. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. How is the class? You can understand the class?
Yes, yes, so good class.
Okay. And you were in Colombia?
I in Colombia.
Okay, yes. And how is everything in Colombia?
This is since I am.
Yeah.
In this moment, we have since I am.
¿Qué significa esto?
Esto, I don't know. Is like this.
Ah, okay. Ah, pero tú dices siciliano. No sé qué dices antes.
No. Okay. I want I want to do a question.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
But the meaning of ticket ping.
Okay.
I don't understand you.
Yeah.
For this idiom.
So the verb to tickle is very typical with children. No sé si entiendes tickle en español. No sé cómo se dice tickle cuando tú haces esto con los niños, con tus dados para hacer un niño riarse.
Okay, como lanzar los dados.
Maybe.
Los dedos, the fingers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's typically a joke. It's typically to have fun, to play with the child. So to tickle is to make the child laugh. And when you make the child laugh excessively, because it's very funny, the color of the face changes from red to pink. So it's an expression to really make somebody laugh a lot. So a very, very funny situation is to tickle somebody pink. And we can use it in a movie. We can use it in, for example, if you watch the movie and it's very funny, you're tickled pink. Difficult. Okay. And Catherine, do you have any other questions?
Is excellent class for
thank
today.
you very much. You're very welcome. And Bori, I see we have Bori. Hello, Bori. I see we have another person speaking. No, okay. So anybody got a question? Anybody want to speak? Okay. Bori Dimitrova. No, okay, no problem. But I think Bori has a question. Sorry, everybody. Hello, Bori.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. And you?
I'm good, thank you. Where are you at the moment? Are you in South America?
I'm from Bulgaria.
Okay.
But now I live in Ireland.
Okay, very good. And are you happy in Ireland?
Yes, I'm happy. I live here with my boyfriend.
Okay.
And I'm very happy.
Fantastic.
Because we are together.
Is it very different? The life in Bulgaria and the life in Ireland is very different?
Yes. The difference is the weather.
Yeah.
Here in Ireland is very cold than Bulgaria.
Yes.
Also, the economy is very different.
Yes.
In the moment in Bulgaria, the economic is not very good. In moment, I'm staying at home because the restaurants and the shops are closed.
Yeah.
And I have much time to learn English.
Good.
Because I want to find a good job.
Good. And how is the English? Is English difficult for you sometimes?
No, the English is not very good for me. I would say that the German is the more difficult than English.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to speak, but I can't very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so how is the class? The class is easy to understand, or the class is a bit difficult?
For me, the class is easy.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the class. I learn many useful things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, so the life is maybe different in Bulgaria compared to Ireland a little.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Very good. No, thank you for watching the class. It's great for me. Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions, Bori?
No, I don't have questions.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So thank you, everybody. And I don't know if there's more questions. If anybody wants to speak, you're welcome. I think Sylvia, I don't know if you would like to speak or you're okay. Oh, okay, perfect. I think it's just a microphone if you want. Or maybe not. Oh, perfect. How are you, Sylvia? Sorry for the...
How are you?
The class was okay or the class was difficult?
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's all clear for me. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good.
You.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so thank you, everybody. You're very welcome. And thank you for participating. I know sometimes it's difficult, but now I will put the video on Facebook and everybody. That's the plan. Because last week I was using Facebook Live, but the connection was very bad on Facebook Live. For this reason, I continue now on Zoom, and I have to save the video and put the video on Facebook and YouTube. But thank you, everybody. I know sometimes it's difficult and boring, but thank you, everybody, for watching, and I hope that you have a good day and keep in contact, and hopefully we talk soon. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.